let me welcome our panel today. I'd like to invite our panelists to enable their video. Our panelists for today are Doug Murdock, the CIO of the State of Hawaii's Office Enterprise Technology Services, ETS. Bhanu Vellanki, COO of eWorld Enterprise Solutions, a local information technology and solutions integration firm. And Joel Bongco, CTO of eWorld also. Safe Travel Solutions requires support and customer care. Imagine all the questions that the travelers have around testing, timing of travel, quarantine, and there are so many different variables. Departure location, international and local rules, and so much more. This team is behind those efforts. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Let me start off by asking you just to introduce yourself and to share what your role and responsibility was in the Safe Travel solution. Why don't we start with you, Doug?
Okay, thanks. I'm Doug Murdock. I'm the CIO for the state of Hawaii. I've been doing this job now for a little over 2 years. And last summer, Governor asked me to get involved in building out a safe platform that would allow travelers to come to Hawaii, initially to be under quarantine, and then eventually to be able to perhaps get exempted but from quarantine by having a test or a vaccination. So my role has been really to be the leader of the project, and a lot of what I was doing was business analysis to try and make sure we took care of all the stakeholders.
Great, thank you. Bhanu?
Thank you, Michelle, giving me the opportunity to participate in this event. Thank you for HTDC and Transform Hawaii Gov. I'm the Bhanu Vellanki. I'm a Chief Operating Officer. I've been working from eWorld for the last 16 years, but in Hawaii, last 26 years, working on various state departments. I used to work in the state as a database section chief. So I pretty much know what the departments needed. Since I worked in the government, I know the policies, procedures. So when I come to eWorld, my responsibility to take care of my critical operations, as well as take care of the water department's needs to work with every department like a DHS, ETS, AG, and transportation. So my job to help to cooperate to the departments to solve their problems. That's what we build the team in eWorld. So that's my daily job, and continue to maintain the relationships. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Last but not least, Joel, please.
Hey, Michelle, thanks, Michelle. So again, Joel Bongco, VP, CTO of eWorld Enterprise Solutions. I've been with the company for about 14 years. Most of my time has been actually managing projects over at the Hawaii Department of Education. And then because of COVID, a lot of companies needed to pivot, including us. So over the last several months, we've helped and supported various, we're calling customer experience centers. So our first one being Safe Travels. So it started early last year, mid last year, and then started up the Safe Travels call center. And originally we were supporting just the screeners, and then the screeners turned into travelers. So it's been an interesting ride. We've got about 15 to 20 call center reps. So we've been supporting Safe Travels, and that's really grown from supporting travelers and screeners. And we're also working on other call centers, including the Department of Labor, as well as the Department of Health. So glad to be here and glad to share what we've done over the last several months.
Oh, that is great. And it sounds like this is the start and it's continuing to roll out. Yeah, that's wonderful. So Safe Travel sounds like such an endeavor. Doug, do you want to set the stage for us by sharing an overview of the solution and what you guys do at ETS?
Sure. Should I share my screen here?
Please do.
Okay, we should have it up now.
Yeah,
so
looks good.
ETS does a lot of things for the state in terms of strategy and road mapping and planning and program management, and just trying to bring the entire state technology process up to a higher level in terms of capability, maturity. So we do focus on people, process, and technology. We have a strategic plan that we operate under. First, the 7 principles: partner for successful outcomes by creating good business frameworks, enhancing the value of state data, extending IT portfolio governance so we know what everybody's building, digital workforce development, statewide cybersecurity strategy, optimizing our enterprise systems that we already have, and implementing dynamic and sustainable IT operations. So all of these were at play as we were building out Safe Travels. We also have this digital transformation strategy, trying to get the state of Hawaii transformed into a better organization. So, the first step is to transform ETS and to transform our systems like our unemployment insurance system. We want to transform the way citizens' identity is held within the state. Right now, every system just about requires a citizen to establish their own identity. We'd like to unify that. Transforming the experience, a lot of Safe Travels that we're talking about today is going to be about transforming the experience, letting people get through to government more quickly, get the answers that they need more quickly, and move on. And then finally, transforming our data. A lot of you have probably already been on the Safe Travels page making your own trip. And I think I have to give just a ton of credit to my team for coming up with the way the system works and how everything fits together. Even some guys on my team thought a video would be great to allow people to see the process from start to finish right at the end, right at the beginning before they register. So they built this little video, and I encourage you to watch it because it's really a great little walkthrough. And we have it in English and Japanese and Korean, I think, right now on the system. The system was developed very, very quickly. I think the governor called me on June 29th. We had requirements starting on July 2nd. We were evaluating vendors in early July, looking at a couple of prior versions that were built but couldn't quite do everything that we needed to be able to do. We hired SpringML and Google July 24th, and we actually had a soft launch of the system on August 11th. So, maybe 6 weeks from the time we were asked to work on this, and really only about 3 weeks from the time that we hired the vendor, we had something up and running and actually working with flight crews coming into Hawaii. Our full launch was on September 1st, and then our pre-travel testing launch, where you could put in your negative test and get exempt, started on October 15th. So it was very quick, very agile. We were adjusting all the time. And I can tell you it's still like that. We're still making changes. Right now we're working on vaccinations and different ways to enter tests into the system, always trying to make it better. One of the things that I think has been really great in the system is this QR code and the registry of trips that each traveler has. So we got a question at one time, how does the hotel know somebody's not in quarantine or that they are in quarantine, or how does a rental car company know? And so we created this within the system. The traveler can actually show their status, whether they're screened or not, whether or not they're in quarantine, when their last day of quarantine is, and then if they're exempt, why they're exempt. So we put all this information out there so that as a government, we couldn't really share with hotels who's, the status of a traveler's quarantine, but the traveler could share themselves. And this is, one of the many dashboards that we have. We have dashboards for Department of Health and for law enforcement, for the counties and some other ones. But this is kind of the big dashboard that we use that shows everything. This is similar to the public dashboard that's available on the Hawaii COVID-19 website. And you can see it on this one. We had 1.884 million visitors since October 15th. I think I looked this morning, it was 1.965. So probably in the next 2 or 3 days, we'll go over 2 million travelers that have actually registered in and used Safe Travels, either for trans-Pacific or inter-island flights. So it's really fabulous how well it's worked. And part of the design had to be real flexibility. So originally we were screening everybody in airports in Hawaii. And one of the airlines came to us and said, how about if we screen people on our end to make sure that they have everything they need to have a good vacation? That was Alaska Airlines. And we said, that sounds great. So they took the iPads and the screener application, and it worked in Alaska and Seattle and Portland. And now most of the airlines are actually screening on the departure side. And so we've been able to run, our screening in Japan and Korea and Canada and all over the United States. And that's just one of the great advantages we got from using the cloud. Everybody from anywhere in the world can register for our system, and anybody in the world or at any location in the world, we can screen people through the system. And then I just want to look at this real quick in terms of the big picture impact of the chat and voice bots and safe travels. We have two systems running in terms of chat and voice bots right now. One is the one that eWorld's going to talk about, but this is the other one. We were at the beginning of Safe Travels calling travelers every day to check and make sure they were staying in quarantine. And we could only call at any given day about 10% of the travelers because there were so many. And it was costing us about $300,000 a month to run that call center to call 10% of the travelers and see if they were staying in quarantine. So we put a voice and chat bot using phone and email and texting, and that cost us $300,000 to build. So it was $300,000 one time. The labor for the quarantine check, when we had people doing it, was $1.8 million. With the bots, we were actually calling everybody or texting everybody at least once a day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day until they checked in. You know, when our call center was open, it was 8 to 5. Once we brought the bots online, it was 24/7 every day, Saturday, Sunday. And then we opened up more channels. So with labor, we had the website and the agent calling the traveler. And when we brought the bots online, we had the website, chat bot to traveler by text, voice bot to traveler, traveler to voice bot, and multilingual. So one of the problems this solved was allowing people to check in by calling a phone number instead of having to have their computer with them, because some people are not as computer literate as others. So basically, we got a lot more capability for 1/6 of the cost. From, you know, it would have cost 1.8 million. It only cost 300,000 to do it with the chatbots. And we got a lot better coverage, 24/7, you know, 100% follow up. And, you know, the people that were in the first call center, they didn't become unemployed. They moved on to the second call center and allowed us to start attacking other problems. So it all worked out really great. And that's it for me. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Doug. I think the impact of it shows that moving to the cloud is a game changer. Joel, I'd like to turn it over to you for a brief demo and overview.
Yeah, thank you there, Michelle. Let me just bring up my screen here so you guys could see this. So, alrighty. So let me just kind of set some context, and then I'll go to a quick demo. We partnered with Google here locally, and wanted to give you guys a real quick update and perspective on the chatbot. So Safe Travels chatbot. So I think from an industry perspective, you know, many people are trying to use a chatbot to help build capacity. I guess in some cases, you know, it's not effective and it doesn't necessarily work that well. So we wanted to make sure we didn't necessarily fall into this. So we made some provisions for that. So I think we've also addressed a couple of areas causing bots to fail. You know, one is just in terms of the accessibility from an AI perspective. Especially here in Hawaii, I think, you know, one of the other big things is just context. You know, we're dealing with a population here, lots of kapuna, various languages. And then for us, having to interface with other systems. So I think from a Safe Travels chatbot perspective, we took all of these kind of lessons learned that we see kind of in the industry perspective, and we wanted to make sure that it was incorporated what we were going to do specific to the chatbot for Safe Travels. So, you know, one of the other things too, when it comes to chatbot technology, is the fact that you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are already built. And for example, on the Google side, you know, there's a lot of pre-built agents that you can use depending on the business that you have. I mean, for us, in terms of language and map settings, but, you know, there's other industries here in Hawaii that could definitely leverage from this, whether you're in the food or the hotel industry, radio and news. I think there's a lot of innovations here that you can use in your specific line of business when it comes to chatbot and chatbot technology. I think the other big thing here in Hawaii, since we're a fairly large melting pot, is the support of various languages. We call it LEP, Limited English Proficiency. And I think using a chatbot and being able to communicate in various languages, I think is very, very important here in Hawaii. So we took that into consideration as well. So here's kind of in the nutshell, what it is from a chatbot perspective, which at the end of the day, it's a virtual agent, right? So, and you'll hear this term, and the term is called intent. And intent is basically kind of like what the caller would be requesting for. So for us in Safe Travels, we've built several dozen intents, including whether you're an international traveler, whether you're an inter-island traveler, or you're traveling, from the continental U.S. And then from there, what we will do is we'll have these intents in place, and we'll also kind of train. I mean, these agents are pretty akamai, and it's one of those things where you could have a continuous improvement process where as you go and iterate and it interfaces with travelers, it gets smarter, and we can make adjustments along the way, and then adjust actions and parameters as well as responses. So this is something that we've been doing since December, and it gets better and better as we make adjustments to the intents. So I think from our perspective, in terms of using chatbot technology, I think one is it provides a virtual agent, and this virtual agent's available 24/7. It can also help with assisting. So for us, based on the number of calls that were coming into our call center, we were able to deflect a bunch of calls and have the virtual agent take care of those calls, and then we would handle more complex related issues. The other thing too is there's definitely a lot of insights specific to the chatbot, and maybe things you didn't take into account. And then especially for us here, again, being in a melting pot of a lot of different nationalities and languages, there's certain occasions where the chatbot doesn't understand maybe somebody with a fairly heavy accent. So we can make adjustments along the way, including people that are talking to the bot in Pidgin English. So definitely a lot of good things to use and a lot of tools to use when we're using the chatbot. The other thing too is when it comes to just the interfacing with a chatbot, it's really a journey, and it's a never-ending one where here's kind of a roadmap that you can use to work on your journey specific to leveraging a chatbot in your environment, where you could create a business plan, and then create a persona of what you would like to interface with your customer base. In our case, it's travelers and screeners, but it could be vacationers, it could be banking customers, it could be in manufacturing, it could be in the hotel industry. So sky's the limit. And then from there, what you could do is create scripts, and this is where you start to really encapsulate your knowledge base. So you have knowledge workers there that could help put together these professional scripts to be able to interact with people, with your customers, and then connect it in the back end. So the one good thing about this chatbot technology is you can have it reach into your current systems, whether you have a backend system that has all your customer relationship management information, it has all of your customer data, whether it's maybe your students, maybe your hotel guests, maybe it's your customers that have some kind of record that you can reach into and find the status of it. And the one thing that we would advise you to do is to build a proof of concept. And most organizations here, you don't necessarily have to start with a fully baked production solution. Start and just kind of test it out and see how it works out in your environment. And then allow it to work with your human agents. And I think it's really a dance between the chatbots as well as your highly skilled human agents that can help with the customer experience. So without further ado, here's the demo. And basically what I'm going to be doing is doing a really quick demo of safe travels. So the scenario is it's John Smith. He's going to be calling the Safe Travels call center, and he's traveling from Los Angeles to Maui, and he's got an issue with a COVID test. So there's a lot of different scenarios. So this is a fairly simple one. So let me start this. So let me call the number. And it'll go through a list of prompts, and I'll run you guys through an experience with the chatbot.
Aloha. You've reached the Safe Travels Hawaii Technical Service Desk. For the most up-to-date information and an easy-to-reference guide on common questions, please go to www.hawaiicovid19.com. If you are calling to get off quarantine, please be aware that we are unable to get you off quarantine. For English, please say English.
日本語でのご案内をご希望の方は日本語とおっしゃってください。
English.
To help make sure that you receive the best service, I need to collect some information before we begin. Please say and spell your first and last name.
John Smith.
Is +1 8084663600 a good number to contact you at?
Yes.
Thank you. From which of the following are you traveling from? From outside the U.S., from within the continental U.S., or from a neighbor island?
Within the continental U.S.
What island do you plan to stay on?
Maui.
Thank you. Please note that County of Maui public health emergency rules now require the download of the Aloha Safe Alert application for all travelers participating in the Safe Travels program and those who obtain a limited quarantine exemption. For more information, please visit mauicounty.gov and alohasafealert.org. How may I help you? You can ask me about topics such as issues with your COVID test, website problems, trusted testing partners or acceptable testing locations, or say, more options.
Issue with COVID test.
I understand that you are having issues with your COVID test. Before I can help you, have you arrived to the state of Hawaii?
No.
Okay. What testing partner did you take the test from?
Costco.
The results from this testing partner are required to be provided on the official State of Hawaii reporting form, which contains the State of Hawaii seal. If you do not have your results on this form, please contact your testing provider to obtain your results on this official form. What else can I help you with?
That's it.
Thank you for calling. Mahalo.
So that's cool. And there was a lot of work associated with kind of putting that together. So when we started Safe Travels Service Desk, we got some pretty basic questions. However, on the back side of that, there was a lot of information that we needed to get out to our travelers, and we needed to get it out with velocity. However, we only had a handful of call center agents. So that's one of the big pushes of using the bot. So let me just give you guys some data. So before the chatbot on the very left here, so you take a look, it's kind of, it's like Pac-Man. We got a large number of calls going directly to the live agents. And then the calls that we couldn't take would go to voicemail. And then we also had 2 intake forms. One is via web form, and then the other was an email. So before the chatbot, I mean, we were taking a majority of the calls. So if you look at the right here, as you can see, after we implemented the chatbot, AKA virtual agent, it was deflecting half of the calls. So, and then from there, it helped with building capacity for our live agents. And then, you know, we did get a reduction specific to our web form, and then voicemail shrank as well. So this is kind of the impact, and we see this pattern for you know, the different for the different chatbot implementations that we have done. We've definitely seen a reduction in calls going to the going into the call center and hitting the live agent first. So definitely very impactful here. Here's kind of a good picture on how this looks. And primarily, this is a graph. So I started back in September and then took it up to today. So basically, that top number is the number of calls that are going into the call center. And so when we started, actually it was less than this. So right around at the end of August, we just had a few hundred. And then things started to slowly creep up from a few hundred to a few thousand. So in September, we had 1,685 callers during this time period. And then right around October, we definitely hit a high of 20,503 during this period. And then things started to kind of trickle down, you know, after Thanksgiving, and then it went down for a little bit, and then now it's starting to tick back up. So I think we hit another high just this past week of travelers calling the call center, and we're at 22,308. So those are the numbers. And then we can save the questions for the breakout sessions. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of my demo. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that, especially the results, because we don't do technology for technology's sake, right? So that was really important. If you can stop, perfect. And I'd like to invite the rest of the panelists to come back. Thank you. And thank you again. So I love that the solution has had such significant impact, both in the number of people it serves, as well as the state in being able to support different people. Putting the technology aside for the moment, though, how has the solution affected people? Doug, maybe we can start with you on how the solutions impacted state agencies and employees.
Well, you know, one of the big things is that we were facing furloughs for all state employees, but tourism picked up a lot faster than we expected. Even the governor was a little surprised that we were doing so well in the October to December timeframe. And I think the revenue forecast changed, and we were able, he was comfortable saying, I don't think we'll need to do furloughs at that time. It took us from October 15th to January 15th to hit the first million visitors that came in, you know, with the new testing process. And we're going to hit the second million in the next 2 days, probably. So January 15th to March 25th. So tourism has picked up a lot faster than we expected, but not at an unmanageable level. So for state government, it's meant that employees didn't have furloughs, and some programs had funding that they needed to take care of our vulnerable population. And then I think a lot of people have been able to go back to work. You know,
that's wonderful
as well.
Yeah, can you share a dollar amount of impact to Hawaii?
I think the first Council of Revenues meeting raised revenue by 300 million. So quite a number just for tax revenue. Now that wasn't just because of safe travels, it was because of a lot of things, you know, but certainly travels helped the tourism sector start to rebound, you know, and maybe saved it from going, you know, too far down where recovery would have taken a lot longer. So, you know, I think it helped us hit a floor that we didn't go below and then start climbing back up again.
Great. And as we move to these digital solutions, I wanted to delve into how our workforce is impacted. Bhanu, can you share how your team has met some of these needs?
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, it's very important. You know, we kind of blessed to work with the UHICS department. We pretty much hire the UH graduates. Every year, 3 interns become employees. Most of our employees, the UH graduates, are local Devlik folks. The best part is that ICS program teaches a lot of good things, and that's what we hire the young generation to move the new technologies. So we partner with the Google. Thanks to Google team invested in Hawaii is a lot of educational dollars. So they did the sandbox to eWorld to train one of our staff. So 100% the chatbots built this application, 100% UH graduates. So we prepare all the thing. We work with the department to see what's in the future. We head up the time we invest in our team to learn the new technologies. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. And so we've talked about the workforce, we've talked about the state. How about the travelers and screeners that actually use this? Joel, maybe you can share what the impact has been to them.
Yeah, I think it's been huge. I think one of the big things is the fact that it's a virtual agent, right? So it's available 24/7. And I think, you know, getting information in their hands from a speed and velocity is very important, because there's a lot of time-sensitive information there, you know, in terms of COVID tests and taking it within a certain time period. And it's best when they're in their originating location, as opposed to when they land here in Hawaii. They'll be pretty upset if something's wrong. So I think it's important for us, especially with the chatbot, that it's impacted a lot of these people, because it's been readily accessible 24/7. And then on the screener side, it also helped with building capacity, because up front we were getting, you know, pretty much inundated with calls coming into the call center. And we also had agents that were helping the screeners as well. So it really helped us in building capacity so that we could serve more people.
Got it. So sometimes when I get on the phone and I hear press 1 to blah, 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 I'm like, oh, I want to talk to somebody. Have you guys, I don't know, what have you seen from the people who have engaged in the chatbot?
I think it's been great. I mean, we're always looking at these chatbots. It's not like a fancy answering machine, right? It's actually listening, it's learning. And I think a lot of people, they give it a try, because one of the things that we can do statistically is, you know, how much of them really leverage the bot versus them calling in and saying, speak to agent, you know, so. Right. So a lot of the callers that are calling in definitely give the chatbot / virtual agent a try. And the other good thing too is sometimes, you know, they catch us with something that is not in the intent, which is also awesome as well. So I mean, I call it the blind spot, right? We never really thought about that intent, and then you've got a caller calling about, hey, so where can I get the best spam musubis on the island, you know? So we can catch that information, and you know, that's information that we can talk amongst ourselves, and then, you know, get the right players involved. So it's
you shared awesome. Yeah, you had shared a percentage of calls that are resolved by chatbot versus the ones that actually need to go to a person. What is that percentage again?
Yeah, typically it's about 40 to 50%. So we've definitely seen a really big gain there and a really big benefit of the chatbot. Here's the other thing too, though, it's not a one-hit wonder. So one of the things that we do is, if we have it on a cycle, what that basically means is we're constantly improving the bot, meaning Are there intents that could be modified? Are there intents that need to be re-engineered? Are there intents that we need to develop to answer yet new questions from the people calling in?
Got it. And so Safe Travels has paved the way for a lot of this cloud solution. Doug, maybe you can share what other agencies do if they're interested, or how people can get started.
You know, we have to admit that almost every call center the state has stood up since COVID started, you know, has been overwhelmed almost immediately. You know, between people doing robotic calling and just huge numbers of people, we've had a hard time servicing everybody. And sometimes it's just as simple as having one phone number you go to get tech support, and one that you go to get other kinds of help, like unemployment. So we've been working with other departments. We're working with the Department of Health now, with DHS, and perhaps we'll be working with unemployment insurance soon, to try and get them to do that digital transformation that was on my one slide, you know, where we look at the customer experience and we build a better customer experience. And having call centers where people actually answer the phone is huge part of that. So that's where I think all these call centers, we hear about the problems, and we can't just say, well, there's too many callers. We're going to have to find a way, and really the only way is for chatbots to handle the easy questions, and then the live agents can handle the harder questions.
How does ETS support them in that?
Well, sometimes we work kind of as a broker. We'll try and hook them up with the right company in the right situation. Sometimes we can help arrange a pilot project where they can test it out and see how it works. Sometimes we're just educating and providing information about what's available out there. And then, of course, we'll demonstrate what we've got going, and we can refer people. And it's not just Google. You know, we're kind of technology agnostic. If a company, some departments have a lot of Microsoft technology. Some of them have a lot of Oracle technology, and sometimes it makes sense for them to go with that company for their chatbot or voice bot. But right now, the Google voice bot, definitely Dialogflow, it's called, has the most momentum within the state, because that's what seems to be coming into production the fastest. I mean, really, it's amazing. We've tried a lot of new technologies as part of Safe Travels. We use artificial intelligence to read the negative COVID tests, for example, so that, I mean, we just didn't have enough people to read all the tests and process them. So we use the artificial intelligence, and all the new technologies we've tried, we're going to find more uses for them going forward.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then through this program, a lot of data is captured. Maybe Joel, you can share, what does this allow organizations to do?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier. I think it allows organizations to make data-driven decisions. So that could mean maybe a tweak, or it could be an overhaul in terms of a process. And then the other thing too is just, you know, this whole thing about continuous improvement. I think, you know, having this data, you could make adjustments along the way. I'll give you an example. When it comes to Safe Travels, we know the bulk of the calls happen between the time we open and 1 o'clock. So that's prime time. So originally we were staffing just throughout the day, but later on we found out that based on the numbers, it's better to front load. So we have a lot more agents on the front side than we do in the late shift, because we're open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we put more of the agents on the front side. And that's just data that we're gathering through the chatbot. And then on top of that is, I call it the blind spots, the stuff that you miss. And then when we miss those, we want to catch it in the next round. So what we'll do is we'll modify the intents to see if we can further deflect, meaning answer the calls using the chatbot as opposed to it going to a live agent. So it's really helped us. We also use the Deming model of plan, do, check again, and act. So, you know, we're constantly looking at the data that we gather from the chatbot, and then just making continuous improvement.
Thank you. And then we covered that the state side is leveraging Google and the solution there. Bhanu, do you have any insight on what the private side is doing and whether or not you're seeing more implementations on the private side?
Yes, thank you, Vishal. Yeah, as Doug mentioned, a lot of departments we are working on with the government side, with the ETS help and all the things of digital transformation. But private side, yes, travel and many of the hotel industry, banks, they're essentially using. And we are using the different kind of, we would like to share our experience with the local our organizations, like other like airlines and other few other, I can't name those kind of local, but we're happy to share our experience, help the Hawaii. We are well positioned. We have all the database, what are the things need to be done, and lessons learned. We're happy to help. Yeah.
That's great. And why don't I go into the Q&A session? This wonderful stuff that that you guys are sharing. I received one question from two different people. So we're dealing with the COVID test and the data there. How do you translate that to the vaccines? Is there going to be a, I think someone put it, Ashley, the vaccine passport of sorts? How does that migrate?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The whole world is trying to figure out how to do a vaccine passport right now. We're the first and almost the only agency that's been able to read, you know, the PCR tests. For various reasons, we were able to pull that off. But unfortunately, the cards, you know, some are handwritten. So one of the things we learned early with the vaccine, with the tests, with the PCR tests was, you know, you need a standardized form. And we need the businesses to consistently give us the same form that looks the same. With the little vaccine cards, it's a little harder because sometimes they're handwritten, sometimes they're typed, sometimes they're labels. They have all kinds of different information on them. Some of them have the next appointment. So we think it's going to be difficult to do it with Vision AI or the artificial reading capability. But there are companies that we're working with that are working with government agencies that have vaccine registries, and also with hospitals and clinics and other people that have health records to see if we can dig the information out that way. So all that is just to say it's going to be very challenging, but a lot of people are working on it right now, including, you know, all the big tech companies, a lot of governance, a lot of international organizations are trying hard to make it work. We're working with two companies, Clear and Common Pass, who are tied into those efforts, and we've offered to be, you know, a prototype or a pilot for them when they think they have something ready to go. And then there's one local company that we're working with, FaxCheck, right now that we're talking to, that is working on getting, you know, access to all the right health record systems to try and pull out that information for travelers that want to. Of course, it always will have to be voluntary. Somebody will give us the right to go look at that result.
That segues into the next question really nicely. How long does Safe Travels retain the data that it receives? And then I guess with the next step, you know, it becomes more health related info. How do you handle privacy?
Yeah, we do have privacy built in and security built in pretty well. But we are right now taking a look at that as part of our current sprint for Safe Travels. We probably will stop retaining the negative test results after a certain period of time, you know, maybe 30 days, and some of the other health information. If somebody, and we want to make it possible for somebody to request to have their record deleted. Right now, that's not built in, but we always have a list of to-dos. We have a huge backlog of things we want to do, and have always pick up some of the security and privacy things out of that list and fix them in every sprint. Right now, we are looking at data retention as something we need to further clarify, and that requires us to work with the Department of Health and the Attorney General and law enforcement and some others to make sure that when we're done purging whatever we're purging, that they still have everything they need.
Great, thank you. Another question that came in is more on the technology side. Does the chatbot handle support for the deaf, people who are hard of hearing?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can as well. So I think, you know, a couple of things from a chatbot perspective is, we're looking at languages, we're looking at, kind of ADA support as well. So it depends on what the requirement is. I mean, that's something that we can definitely bake into the plan and provide support for that.
And I'll mention
Thank
the
you.
quarantine chatbot actually can communicate by text messaging.
Mhm.
So that does. And then for all the other chatbots we're using right now, they're voice, but we have a plan to put them up on the state's websites. And I envision a future where you could be on any website that the state has. For example, you could be on the ETS website and you could say, how do I get unemployment insurance? And the chatbot would take you to the right place.
Great. Thank you guys for all the great questions. I'd like to close the session out by asking you guys for your advice. What advice or what do you think a takeaway should be for the audience that's joined us today? So why don't we start with you, Doug?
Oh, darn. I have to go first. Yeah. I think you really have to stretch a little bit and try things and think about what the customer really needs in terms of service and be willing to transform to meet that need. I think people have a much higher expectation today than they did, maybe even a couple of years ago. And so you have to stretch for what's possible and make things happen for the people that you want to have as your customers or clients, including people, and even the government needs to do that. Even though we don't have competition, we still need to do the right thing by our citizens.
Great, thank you. And that was one of the conversations we had when we were prepping for this session. Technology is changing so fast that it moves to no code, and now all of a sudden all these other opportunities are available to you. And in the past, when AI and ML were unattainable for common folk, it's much more attainable now. Joel, how about you? What do you think is the one takeaway that you'd like to share?
I think it's important. I think for some organizations, this is like, hey, this is way down the line. I would enroll them and recommend start small and start now, because I think it's a good way to kind of get your feet wet as you move into the digital age. Here's the other thing as well. I think it also helps with, there is kind of an aging population here in Hawaii that is retiring. It's also a great way to start getting that information, all those secret recipes that a lot of information workers have had over a period of time. And for you to kind of build your next generation knowledge base and then start it and do it a different way, using a combination of your workforce and a virtual agent.
Great idea. And then Bhanu, can you also share what your takeaway is from this session?
Yeah, I think Doug and Joe covered a lot of the things, but I would like to say these chatbots and the cloud technology, especially this pandemic, it is very easy to get started. And there's a lot of these chatbots you can do month to month, very flexible options, very cost efficiency. It depends on the customer service scheduling. It's very easy to do this kind of stuff. And, because of increasing mobility, because of the pandemic, a lot of people working from home, you go to the cloud, you can able to access these kind of things from the virtually everywhere kind of thing, so it's a lot of flexibility. And that's what I would like to prefer, the cloud technology. Nowadays, everything is cloud. So that's what I would like to say here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And you're right, a lot of these solutions now, it reduces the barriers to entry that we used to have in the past, right? You don't have to buy the servers anymore, you don't have to get the hardware, and it's pay as you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, easy to switch the technology, you don't need to buy the server as you suggested, disaster recovery purpose, everything, yeah.
Yeah. So how long this is another question from Timothy. How long do you think the system will be needed, and how has it, maybe measure the cost benefit of it?
It's such a good question. I think the system itself, the IT part of it, has cost about $1 per traveler who's come in over the last, year. So it was about a $2 million spend and about we're about to hit 2 million travelers. So I think that's been a huge, return on investment. Now, the other parts of the program, like having all the screeners and having all the people doing different jobs as part of this, is another expense. But just the digital application itself is about $1 per traveler. So it's been incredibly efficient, use of funds, mostly paid for with CARES Act. And we will, obviously we're not going to delete it. We're going to keep it. If anything happens again, and this would be useful, we'll be able to pull it up and make some adjustments and use it. And we may even use parts of it to do the agriculture and the tourism form that people fill out when they're on the airplane. So we're always looking at ways we can, solve a problem with technology and make things work better. So yeah, it's really been very cost efficient by any measure, I think.
Yeah, so it sounds like the technology is here to stay. Yeah.
Let's hope.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for the great questions. And thank you to my panel for being so open and sharing everything. Thank you.